We're excited to be here with you all and looking forward to start our multi-part series of our thought leadership. Before we really dive into global expansion, we have Melanie with us today, and I really want to know a little bit about your journey and some milestones that you really find to be pivotal in what shape your career.
Yeah. I think I've had actually a webinar whereby I spoke about my journey with Yoni a few years ago. I think from a top level point of view, I started off in accounting and tax, but I will say that accounting was one that was the main one, which is followed by a personal and corporate tax. But we soon pivoted into international expansion, so cross-border expansion, where we supported businesses with scaling into international or countries outside their home country. And so that is, we realized that, scaling a company is not just more about numbers, it's more about strategy and resilience. When Avast first started off, we were just using partners in Europe as part of our expansion strategy, which is absolutely fine because, you need
They're essential.
It's essential. And you need to sort of like have a starting point. You need to build a use case. So we thought, we're going to be using our partners in order for us to scale. One of the biggest lessons that I learned along the way was hiring the right team. And I will say every business needs that. You can have the best strategy in the world, but without the right people, the execution part falls apart. And that's one thing that we actually quickly learned. And also I've learned that mistakes are just inevitable. You're going to come against mistakes. You're going to make mistakes as you scale. And I think I think people online were very, I would say they were not kind to Meghan Markle. She launched a brand with a certain name, and she quickly changed that into a different name because, people fail sometimes. And probably she couldn't trademark that brand. And I've seen it with sellers as well that have launched their products and they want to brand that product or that company, and they realize that actually you cannot brand that name because it's already somebody else's name. Somebody else is using that. So I would say that you will go through some challenges and there will be some mistakes. One of the things that in my earlier career I hesitated to do was to delegate, thinking I had to do everything myself. And I think when I look at my experience with sellers, when I look at sellers and how they work today, it's different than they worked 10 years ago, or my experiences with sellers 10 years ago. They did everything themselves, and I think VAs wasn't anything that was actually popular at that time, and they didn't use VAs. And I think even right now, we've got entrepreneurs that don't think about delegating some of the responsibilities that they have. They think that they have to do everything themselves. I look at it on localization. So when you talk about localization, I know you're going to ask me more about that, but when you talk about localization and expanding over into Europe, the first thing that entrepreneurs or e-commerce sellers will think about is the fact that I don't speak German, I don't speak French, I don't speak Italian. How am I going to be able to be dealing with all the EU27 languages that are out there? And again, it's about delegation. Mm-hmm. They don't think about the fact that you need to delegate that responsibility to somebody else or to a company that can actually support you. So I would say delegation was one of those major things for me. Learning that I couldn't be everything myself, that I couldn't learn or about trusting other people. So like remove the tasks that are there, and also empowering them for critical thinking and growth. Because again, it goes back on you being the leader. Right now, you think that, you know what, Ali's got everything under control. So why can't you just push that over to other people?
And it goes back to choosing that right team just from the beginning to be able to feel comfortable delegating.
Correct. Correct. So important.
So you've led through uncertain times, through market downturns, through global disruptions. How do you handle uncertainty and specifically crisis management within timeframes like that?
I think first you have to accept that there will always be uncertainty when you are an entrepreneur. It's just part of the game, isn't it? There's nothing that you can do about it.
Especially in the ecom world, right?
I think you can go back when I was just doing accounting, bookkeeping, personal tax, corporate tax. We had changes every year. Every year on the 5th of April, there were tax changes from a personal point of view. I would say that corporation tax was actually one of the most stable taxes in the UK, at least. But personal tax, it was one that was a bit choppy. But when we pivoted over to e-commerce, I think e-commerce is not standing still. I mean, I've gone through 2008, whereby we had economic downturns. There will always be unexpected market shifts. But I would say that the best leaders are those who stay agile and adaptable. During challenging times, I focus on 3 things. And I would say it's clear communication. Communicate, whether that's with your team or that's with your clients or it's with your suppliers. You need to make sure that you communicate, be transparent. People can handle bad news better than silence. So if you were a seller that buys products from China and you have got trouble because you have got probably higher fees that you didn't anticipate and you need to order some inventory, I would say just communicate. That's one of the most important pieces. And even just for relationships, it's one of the most important pieces, I would say. And maybe sometimes I over-communicate, which again could be a bit of a problem. I would say resilience over reaction. So instead of making knee-jerk decisions, I have to take a step back, assess the situation, but also I have got my tribe. I've got my friends in business. I've got my leadership team. I am not scared to ask questions.
And you have amazing partners in the industry as well.
I've got amazing partners in the industry, but also I have got my team that I trust. What's important is that my team knows that Melanie doesn't have all the answers. So I will ask them, as far as if you've got this situation, how would you handle that? And they always come up with better decisions than I would have done. Innovation to adversity. So some of the best business decisions come from tough moments. Most sellers, they've got a lot of competitors online. Imagine you launched the product and it's been the same product for the past 10 years. Right now, I think sellers, they look at really being innovative and changing their products. Why? Because there's so much that's going on in the market. There's new sellers that are coming in the market. So you need to stay agile. And the businesses that thrive during crisis are always the ones that pivoted quickly. You remember during COVID, I think it was one of the most important words that people were using, that you've got to pivot, you've got to pivot. That stays true even today.
Yep.
So you cannot stay still. You always need to think about how could you do things better as a business. Whether that's you are in the service industry, whereby you're seeing more competitors are coming in with low pricing, or you've got a product that you've just launched and somebody comes in and undercuts that product, but they're undercutting you in one marketplace. They are not actually selling the product in other markets. And this is where diversification comes in.
Yep.
So you can never stay still.
So you talked about innovating to be able to scale a business. What strategies have worked for you in the past to be able to scale businesses?
So I would say that, and this actually it does depend on a lot of things, or how you as an entrepreneur, you actually look at things. How I actually look at it is that scaling isn't just about revenue. It's about structure. It's about professionalization of the processes, hiring, client experience drivers. So I would say that, first of all, I look at just not revenue. I look at the structure. So processes before growth. We scaled as a business 2016 to 2020 at one of the highest speeds and levels, which meant that the processes that we had actually entered the market with, they soon became redundant. And I would say that fast growth can create bottlenecks. And we were not in times like today, whereby we've got AI and you can produce with the right prompts, you can produce a good process and sort of like put it to operationalize it as soon as possible. I would say that process is probably maybe one of our biggest bottleneck when we first, when we scaled or when we grew at the highest rate. Hiring the right people. So I go back on employment. Hiring the right team. When you are growing at or scaling at a faster speed, hiring can be a challenge because you are looking at getting the right people on board. But at the same time, it can be very hard because, you're looking for a great talent. It takes time to hire the great people. Hiring the wrong people as well at the same time, it could be very costly, because you do training, you hire somebody today, you do training for the next 6 months or for the next year. Just when you want them to deliver, they actually go. It's because you just didn't hire the right individuals, and maybe you didn't have the right tools to support them to take the business or whatever project that they have going on into the next level. So it could just be they are the right people, but you didn't have time to train them. So which means there's friction there, right? Client experience as a growth driver. When we first launched Avask, we used to be called the proactive accountants. Why? Because we felt that the market, it lacked that. Especially accountants are sort of like very, conservative. And we soon learned that, this was one of the best strategies, especially pivoting over to e-commerce, that, you want to make your clients happy. So we wanted to prioritize the sort of like a top tier service that would lead to more referrals and more business than just running marketing ads. We partnered with e-commerce platforms. So if you think about it, also partnerships is one of the most important things when you're thinking about scaling. So I would say that those are the things that helped us along the way.
Okay. Yeah. So also within e-commerce, we know entrepreneurs and e-com sellers are always having to evolve, right? It just goes along with how do they scale is having to innovate and evolve. How would you say that you've actually stayed ahead within evolving in this competitive industry?
What we've done, it's difficult. I'm not going to say it's easy. I would say the key is staying proactive, not reactive. Anticipate anticipate trends before they become the mainstream, whether that's going to be AI, new tax regulations, or changing consumer habits. We spend a lot of time studying industry shifts. We build strong partnerships, which is for us is one of the biggest drivers of our growth. We do adapt very quickly. Some businesses fail not just because they are bad, but just because they resist the change. So again, it is about pivoting, optimizing, and innovation that's going to make you to stay ahead and be innovative.